always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you'll never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. And God only knows what I'd be without you. If you should ever leave me, though life would still go on, believe me, the world would do nothing to me. So what good would living do me? God only knows what I'd be without you. Well, I'm very excited. As you can guess from my opening musical clue, today's guest is, no, it's not Brian Wilson, but it is one of my favorite music YouTubers out there. His name is Giggens. He has an amazing collection of music, and he keeps pulling record after record that not only is really nice to look at, but makes me think, oh, I want to listen to that. And he just talks about it in such an easygoing way that just makes you think, yeah, this is a record I want to listen to. I think it's fascinating that you have this in your collection. And on top of that, Giggens is one of the great champions of the Beach Boys as a band. And that's something I'm going to get into in this interview, because a lot of people who have a more casual relationship to the Beach Boys might just think, oh, they are a novelty group who wrote surf songs, when in fact they did so much more. So I'm very interested to hear what Giggens has to say about being a YouTuber, about his record collector, and of course, that iconic band. Here's Giggens. I'm joined today by Giggens. There's a lot we could talk about. Why don't we start with the name itself? I assume it comes from gigs in music.
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually is a variation of my actual last name. And when I was in high school, a friend of mine confused my last name with Giggens, and that just kind of stuck. And it's been that way ever since.
Excellent. So you've been a YouTuber for some time now. So can you talk about the history of your channel? Has it always been in the current format, or are there any major evolutions?
I mean, it's mostly been album reviews since day one. The biggest thing I would say is that I got onto a schedule, like onto a routine at one point. So I put things out on a regular basis. So I put reviews out every Friday, and then all kinds of other things have changed over the years. I do more shows now, where I do shows about the Beach Boys, things that I pick up like records and tapes and stuff. Cover songs, I put out those on YouTube, topic videos. So it's grown into more than just reviews. So it's more of a music oriented kind of catch all, I guess. Yeah.
Right. I mean, would you say there are any sort of tips you picked up over the years for doing your reviews? You know, it's been said that it's very hard to put into words what's great about a song, for instance.
Just getting more comfortable with talking to nothing, like talking to your computer. You get tired of hearing yourself say the same things over and over again. And so you kind of listen more intently to what you're playing. You find other ways to talk about how a song makes you feel or the message you're trying to convey. And so I think over the years, I've developed more of a vocabulary for music. My early videos are definitely awkward. I was trying to fit in with the YouTube mold, and I got sick of that real fast. And I was like, I'm just going to be myself and see what happens. And people seem to like it. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, and I mean, looking behind you, it's quite the library you have. Like, are you always adding to your sort of record shelves, or is there's a lot that you're taking in and getting rid of? Like, how do you manage all the stuff you must compile for these videos?
Yeah, this is like 20 years worth of collecting. This didn't happen overnight. And I sold off probably a good 600 or 700 records at one point, just to pay rent and stuff for a while. But yeah, I mean, I have a ton of CDs. I've probably got like 1,000 CDs and a bunch of cassettes and 8 tracks and records, of course. So I'm not bringing in as much right now because I'm running out of space. But yeah, I'm always slowly adding something to it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm someone who, and I assume you too, who are, you know, insistent on using the older media, but I'm also very space cognizant, so I just end up taking things out of the library a lot of the time. But I guess you have the feeling you want to keep building on this collection, impossible as it may be.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely want to keep building it over the years, and I'm sure when I'm like 50, I'll probably just give it to somebody. But yeah, I mean, the library is a great resource, man. I was a librarian for a while. I grew up in libraries. They're super important places to me. So yeah, being able to get that kind of stuff for free and be able to use it as you want is a pretty far out idea. So I dig that you get it from the library. I think it's great.
So you're also putting yourself out there more as a musician these days. You recently put out an EP, Giggens presents the Airedales, and it's an interesting list of songs. So other than "Don't Think Twice, It's All Right," which a lot of people cover, everything else there, I was like, huh, I barely heard of that, or I hadn't heard of it. Why not? Could you tell us about how you put those tracks together?
That's really cool, man. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm recording stuff all the time, whether it's originals or covers, and I've been talking about putting out a covers EP for a while now. And as I was looking over stuff that I've recorded in the last couple of years probably 50 covers. And so I kind of just took my favorites out of the bunch and put them out there, ones that I felt like fit my voice. Because I'm not the best singer in the world, or ones that I felt like I really enjoyed figuring out the guitar parts, like you didn't have to be so nice for the Love and Spoonful. That was a fun one to figure out the guitar leads for. But yeah, I kind of just picked out some of my favorite songs and more of an eclectic bunch. It wasn't the songs you know all the time. Like people go out and play the same 12 songs over and over again. I've never been one to do that. Sometimes to my detriment that people won't pay attention, but
Right.
um,
Well, the last song, for
yeah,
instance, is it was a Beach Boys song, but it's not one of their surfing fun songs. Tell us a bit about that
yeah,
track.
yeah. Well, that's called Long Promised Road. And that's always been a song that I've identified with because it's a song about overcoming struggles and hardships and rough patches in your life and realizing that things do get better and things improve and you're going to be all right. um, and we've all had our fair share of those moments or years of those moments, so that's always been a song for me that I just really I wanted to do to get it off my chest. um, Not an easy song at all to do, and I don't hold a candle to Carl Wilson, but something I just felt I had to do, and people seem to like it, which is I was not expecting.
To get to maybe the meat of this discussion, I had this argument a couple years ago with my family where we asked, is there any group that is the American equivalent of the Beatles? And I figured, well, okay, if it has to be anyone, it's the Beach Boys. And they were all like, no, 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 because they only have the convention of the Beach Boys as novelty surf songs and are sort of forgetting everything that came after. So I'm kind of curious about your own journey. How did you come to be the Beach Boys guy? Did you always know there was more? Did a particular album, tell you that they were really something special?
That's a good question. I mean, when I was little, I loved their greatest hits albums and I had Pet Sounds, but I didn't start getting heavier into their albums till I was probably 15, 16, something like that. I was in high school. I read Brian Wilson's autobiography at that time, Wouldn't It Be Nice? Or autobiography, it's sort of ghost written.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of spurred my interest in a lot of things, especially Smiley Smile. Reading about that, I was like, what is this Smiley Smile? And I went out and bought the CD set, which has Smiley Smile and Wild Honey as one CD. And that was it. I just went down the rabbit hole from there. And at that time, there was very few people I was able to talk to about this stuff in person and online. It was growing online. There was a couple of like message boards, forums to talk about it. But one day I got in front of my camera and I was like, let me just make a video about the Beach Boys and see what happens. And it's like one of my first videos. It's such an awkward video. But yeah, from there, I just realized there was a hole in YouTube about Beach Boys content. Everything was Pet Sounds and then Smile eventually. But no one was talking about all their other albums. And so I was like, I'll do it. And because I'm a huge Beach Boys fan. And that's kind of it. It took off from there. And a lot of people do think of me as the Beach Boys guy on YouTube, which is cool, but there's a lot of other people doing it too. It's not just me.
Right.
I
Well,
don't want
one
that
basic
title.
thing I wanted to clarify. So there's both Smiley Smile and Smile, the two different versions of the same record. How do you think about the two? Is one better or more authentic?
So, I mean, it's such a long story. The Spark Notes version is Brian started working on the album that was going to be called Smile, and combination of lack of interest from the record company, drugs, people falling out that he was working with, going down the rabbit hole of like really diving into this album for a long time. It fell apart, and they still owed a record. And so they kind of took ideas of what Smile had and stripped it down to like guitar, drums, and some bass and made Smiley Smile out of it with a couple of new songs here and there. But the original Smile is super orchestral, very dynamic and moving and extremely in its own genre. And then Smiley Smile is what they call lo-fi. It's basically like an indie bedroom record these days. Um, is one better than the other? No, they're both great. They're both quirky and weird, you know. Um, yeah, definitely. I recommend hearing both because there's versions of songs on both that are different, and both versions are really far out. So I recommend it. It's weird.
Right. So I feel like I'm on level two maybe of the discourse. So I know more than just the surf stuff, but I feel like I only know as far as the sort of story in Love and Mercy that Brian was more innovative than the others, that Pet Sounds was like no other album, and then after that comes Good Vibrations. But what I realized from that movie almost misrepresents is that there were a ton of Beach Boys albums after that. And I guess he was involved in some ways, and then Carl and Dennis, it sounds like they developed as interesting musicians in their own right. I don't know if Mike Love ever did.
You're 100% right. They all did actually. Denny and Carl definitely took the reins. Carl more than anybody else. Without Carl, that band would have fallen apart. He was the glue that kept that band together for 30 years after Brian kind of went, "Now I'm good." um, yeah, they released a ton of albums. You know, in the late '60s, Brian was still involved. Not as much, but definitely had a huge impact on what they were doing after Pet Sounds. And in the '70s, he kind of faded away a little bit more in the background. He was working on other projects, or he just didn't feel like doing it. So the other guys picked up the slack and wrote songs together. And even Mike wrote a couple of great songs. He wrote like "All I Want to Do" on Sunflower, which is one of the best things he ever wrote. Um, and Al flourished as a songwriter, and Bruce had a couple here and there, like Disney Girls, and I can't think of the other one right now, but they really became a unit. Whereas before it was kind of Brian being like, "All right, here's your part, here's your part." Now it was like five guys working together, six guys, um, as a band.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have a favorite record of theirs?
I get asked that a lot, and it's not an easy answer because I mean you're a music fan too, so like music speaks to you in different moods. Whether you're like really stoked about something or kind of feeling mellow or kind of feeling, excited or chill or whatever. So different albums speak to me at different times, but Friends is always one that I sort of say is like probably at the top. I love all of them, but Friends for me always kind of is the one that I'm like, yeah, I think that's the one if I had to pick.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna go a bit more on a limb here. You recently posted this collage of all your various music tastes, and there's a lot of overlap with me. The one group, and I've been confused about this more in general. You had a Pink Floyd image on there.
Yeah.
I've never understood their appeal strictly in the sense that they feel like more of a sort of modern classical group. Like so many of their songs don't have any words. They're long and slow. So I've never understood how they manage to be just as mainstream as, all these rock acts that do write hits. So I don't know, do you have a particular take on them, or there particular songs of theirs or projects that you like?
That's a fascinating viewpoint on them, and I totally agree. And I think I think as we progress further into the future, they become more and more of a myth and more of a the poster on your wall or the T-shirt you wear in high school. Um, they weren't. I mean, after Sid Barrett left, he was their first leader. After he left the band after their first album, they floated for like 5 years trying to figure out their footing. Like you said, making long instrumental pieces that kind of became what was known as prog rock eventually, but um, they didn't find success until 1973 when Dark Side of the Moon came out and then put out The Wall. Then Animals did okay, or Wish You Were Here, then Animals, then The Wall, and then they broke up. So I mean, they only had like three really popular albums out of the I don't know 10 that they made or something. Yeah, they're a fascinating band, and they're not an easy band to get into besides saying start with Dark Side of the Moon and go from there because that's definitely the gateway Pink Floyd album for a lot of people. I always say start with Piper at the Gates of Dawn because it's far out, man. It's a weird ride. Um, there's some wacky sound effects. It's all Sid Barrett's quirky little caricature songs about, a gnome or a guy riding a bike. Um, these like weird little slice of life songs that he was writing, which I just find so fantastic and charismatic and characteristically Sid Barrett. But yeah, no, they're definitely a band that people know those three big albums in the '70s and have no idea about like metal or Obscured by Clouds or Umaguma or any of that stuff. They're a band that you can spend months digesting and barely touch the surface of. Yeah, they're a lot going on.
So going forward, are there any particular records you're dying to review, any vision for the channel, or is it just you're gonna keep sort of pulling out what's interesting at any given moment?
That's pretty much what I do. Like, on Patreon, I have a tier subscription on Patreon, and for the higher ones, people can request me to do certain albums for that. And so I'm doing a few of those coming up. But really, it's just I look at my collection and kind of pick one out and go, oh yeah, that's striking me right now, then do that. But yeah, I'm always working on new shows for the channel, and always working on something. I'm always staying creative. When I'm not moving or doing something active or creative, I feel like I'm wasting my time. So I'm up till 2 or 3 in the morning almost every single day working on stuff. Passion of love or labor of love, whatever that phrase is. Yeah.
Right. Excellent. Well, Giggens, this has been great. You said you have a song to share with us.
Let's do But Darling Be Home Soon, also off of the Giggens Presents the Airedales EP. Talk of all the things we did today. Here and laugh about our funny little ways while we have a few minutes to breathe. And I know that it's time you must leave, but darling, be home soon. I couldn't bear to wait an extra minute. If you don't, my darling, be home soon. It's not just these few hours, but I've been waiting since I told, for the great relief of having you to talk to. Now, a quarter of my life is almost past. I think I've come to see myself at last, and I see that the time spent confused was the time that I spent without you, and I feel myself in blue. So darling, be home soon. I couldn't bear to wait an extra minute. Darling, be home soon. It's not just these few hours, but I've been waiting since I taught her, for the great relief of having you to talk to. Go and beat your crazy head against the sky. Try and see beyond the houses. Eyes. It's okay to shoot the moon, but darling, be home soon. I couldn't bear to wait an extra minute. If you don't, my darling, be home soon. It's not just these few hours, but I've been waiting since I caught her.
Very cool. So that's a Loving Spoonful song.
Yes.
So yeah, another group I feel like I barely know. Like I know Do You Believe in Magic and Summer in the City, but yeah, you're reminding me that's another one I think I'd really like and like to take the time to learn about. But
I think you would dig them. They have so many different genres that they cover. They do everything from blues to rock and roll to jug band to country to vaudeville. I mean, they were a massively underrated band. I think they were more known, of course, in the '60s, but these days they're kind of forgotten about to being just 2 or 3 songs. But the Beatles were huge fans of those guys because of how much they were doing, and John even started wearing those little glasses because of John Sebastian. So
So I
yeah,
actually came across them about this time last year because I found the Paul Simon's movie, One Trick Pony, and I think they make a
yeah.
cameo performing in that. But yeah, otherwise I would have slipped under my radar. But yeah, this has been great today, Giggins. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, man. This was so much fun. Thanks, dude.
Well, that was my interview with Giggins. And, I like to try and keep things short and sweet, or at least I'm trying to get better at that on this channel. But there's so many fun things I could ask him about. He has a turntable who shows up in some of his music videos, a turntable with a face. Didn't get to ask about that. He also made a great video where he basically designed his own record art for his own theoretical Beach Boys Greatest Hits album. And he did a great explanation of all the songs he put on that. So just a wonderful guy to talk to, a wonderful guy to hang out with parasocially if you want to watch his YouTube videos, and a great source for getting music recommendations. It was great to talk to Giggins today, and it was great to talk to all of you. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.